and wondering why it kind of fell off after that. That's a hard question to answer.
I don't actually think it is. I've never been that big of a fan of the deck. I feel like a lot of things have to go right with your draws to be very powerful. And it has a tough Esper matchup. It has a pretty tough Blitz matchup. It sounds weird, but it really does. Blitz gets really underneath it really quickly. It doesn't have a lot of ways to interact. If there isn't a Farseek draw, or if turn 2 Thalia comes down, it ends up really tough for the Wolf Run deck. And it's very susceptible to like threaten effects out of aggressive decks. So and Gorklan Rampagers.
So Melissa's performance that weekend was obviously a very good one. Haven't seen much success after that, but we'll see if Harrison is able to maybe duplicate that success this weekend, as we do see Ron resolve a Thragtusk post-combat here, passing the turn back to Harrison. Again, Harrison did just resolve a large Sphinx Revelation, sitting at 18 life, 2 copies of Resting Peace in play, Detention Sphere taking care of their Summerwold Sages. And we'll see if Ron's able to come back, as you do see an Angel Serenity in his hand to go along with the Barrel Rights, which is not doing too much.
Both are not going to do anything against double Rest in Peace. One of the more interesting cards in this Wolf Run Bant list is he actually is running 2 Heroes Reunion on the board. If you need some life in the early turns, it's like it's a fog that sometimes will net you more life than a fog, and it's a great way to make sure you make your land drops in the early turns and survive that onslaught. So I really like that. Also a great trick when an opponent just like exhausts all their resources to deal the last couple damage, you just can reset that with 7 life.
Yeah. And in combination with Snapcaster Bench, you're able to gain 14 life against those 9 Blitz stacks, and you just want to keep your head above water, and so you can actually find one of those Supreme Verdicts to clear the road and then start winning the game with Thragtusk and Restoration Angels.
Yeah, once you survive the initial onslaught against most of these Burning Tree Emissary decks, the top of your deck is going to yield much more powerful spells than your opponent's.
Getting to that situation is difficult. Maybe Heroes Reunion is the answer to be able to do that. As you did say, Blitz is one of the decks that has been kind of pushing Wolf Run Bant, out of the metagame. Maybe a knock this card like Heroes Reunion is the one that brings it back.
I think my favorite thing about Standard right now is the people that are running high-risk, high-reward cards that are very situational. And I mean, it's not the time to be playing a card that's just okay against everything. You want these high-impact spells, and that is one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, without question. As we do see Greenberg here attack with a Restoration Angel. Looks like we saw a Wolf Run activation as well. He does just pass the turn back as Ron does draw a Avacyn's Pilgrim for the turn. Here comes Thragtusk yet again, going to knock Greenberg down to 13.
Yeah, he knows he's ahead right now. I think this is where Ron is going to have to pull the trigger on that Angel.
And normally we see Angel Serenity do a lot more damage than this. It is just going to be a boring old 5/6 that takes care of a Restoration Angel. Yeah, what a loser card. Just a real stinker there. As we do see Harrison, he's going to untap. He's going to draw a card. I believe that draw was a Hinterland Harbor there. He does have another Sphinx Revelation in his hand, as he's going to play Breeding Pool tapped. And he might cash in this Supreme Verdict here. Going to clear up the board. Yeah. Allow Ron to get a Beast token, but he's going to take his Restoration Angel back. And of course, Restoration Angel does win the fight against the Beast token.
We have a, what is that? Is that the Scissor Tiger?
I believe that is the
Rock Tiger?
That is the Rock Tiger. Maybe a Paper Tiger.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's Paper Tiger.
I don't know actually which ones they are.
Ah, yes, Rock Lobster and Scissors Lizard. So we are noobs here in the booth for the Rock, Paper, Scissors game of Magic. It's been many a year since I've played that one.
All right,
in my old age.
Ron's going to be untapping. This game's going to get locked up pretty soon, since that Restoration Angel is representing lethal, and he can't even attack with that Beast because of the Angel. You can just play the Thragtusk.
So he does draw a Thragtusk for the turn and go along with that Avacyn's Pilgrim and Unburial Rights. Of course, Unburial Rights not going to do very much against those 2 copies of Rest in Peace. Avacyn's Pilgrim not the best draw in the mid to late game for this deck. But he will play that Thragtusk that he's drawn here. So that'll come into play, and depending on what's in Harrison's hand, we do know he has a Sphinx Revelation, that Restoration Angel. The rest of the contents we're unaware of, but it looks like Harrison is certainly in the driver's seat this game. See what Ron is able to pull out of his bag of tricks, maybe get himself back into it, as he is going to serve in here with the Beast token. A little bit surprising there. Restoration Angel's going to eat that. Maybe he's trying to bluff something, but again, from that deck, what could he be bluffing?
I mean, he's maybe forcing him not to be able to Sphinx's Rev here. He's maybe setting up, hoping to top deck a Craterhoof Behemoth.
Sure.
And doesn't want him to Sphinx, but I still think Sphinx is not lethal with that, because it's only 22 damage.
All right, you see Harrison considering his options with the less 4 mana. Maybe he has another Restoration Angel in his hand, wondering if he does want to cast that or not.
Oh, I'd say we're all open to play all the angels. If he does in fact have a Sphinx's Revelation in hand, I think putting both in play, you have a Detention Sphere to deal with Angel Serenity. You just make sure your clock is a little bit better.
Yeah, probably just wants to cut the draw steps of Ron and try to get this game over with as best he can. He is ahead right now. Doesn't want to play, too quickly while he's ahead. Does want to consider some things, as you do see him considering maybe casting a Restoration Angel here. But as you said yesterday, players often play very well when they're behind and a little bit more sloppy when they're ahead. So with Harrison being ahead right now, with of course those 2 Rest in Peace and a Restoration Angel kind of clogging up the board, does want to consider his options before moving forward, as he does. And he does draw another Restoration Angel.
Yes.
He's going to play Hinterland Harbor, and let's see if the Restoration Angel that he does have in play is going to come across in the red zone.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he wants to stay aggressive here. He's got Ron back against the wall, many dead top decks, very few live ones. I think the only thing he has to play around is Craterhoof Behemoth, which is, you never really think it's going to be more than a 2 of anyway.
And Ron Seklis does have 2 copies of that here, so assuming that those are still in after this sideboarded game. Of course, Ron did win game 1 as we cut into this mid-match. That is certainly something he can draw to. But Harrison, kind of hemming and hawing on if he does want to attack. Brad thinks he should. We'll see if he does agree with Brad.
Are we for sure he has a Sphinx's Rev in hand? I see a Detention Sphere.
It doesn't look like he does now.
So I actually like the line of getting rid of the Avacyn's Pilgrim, forcing the card in hand to be a land or Craterhoof and having a top deck, because he is dead in 2 turns from that Wolfram. And because he's at 13 life, a Sphinx's Revelation would not even save Harrison. So making sure that a hoof could not do anything is exactly what he needs to do right now.
And he has finally.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he's going to attack, pump for 4. That leaves open a Restoration Angel and a Detention Sphere on Avacyn's Pilgrim.
And we do see a Restoration Angel come across. We do see Kessig Wolfrun pump it for 4. Detention Sphere takes care of that Avacyn's Pilgrim. And as you predicted, it looks like that's going to be his turn.
Yeah,
and he does just pass the turn back.
And that allows him to have lethal, and Ron is drawing almost dead.
And a Woodland Cemetery is certainly not going to help things here for Ron right now. Just a Thragtusk and that Unburial Rites in his hand as well. So looks like we may be moving on to a game 3 here momentarily. He is going to play that Woodland Cemetery.
Tap 8 mana to put fear into his eyes.
He's separating 4 and 4. He's trying to maybe bluff a Restoration
It's only
Angel.
14 damage, and the Restoration Angel protects him.
Yeah. And we're going to see Thragtusk come across here for Ron. And you'll see Harrison play a Restoration Angel of his own. He is going to trade with the Thragtusk here, so Ron will get a Beast token.
And he does have a lethal Angel in the air, and Junk Reanimator might be a very good efficient deck, but it is not tricky. So at this point, if there is no blocks, he is free to Wolfram.
Yeah. The only card that he does have to worry about that's commonplace in these decks nowadays. Some people are starting to play 2 Orzhov Charms in their main deck, and you do see Greenberg moving over those Kessig Wolfrun lands, and it looks like he's going to go for the amount to win the game.
Yeah.
It does resolve. Ron is going to concede the game. So we're moving on to a game 3 here between Wolfrun Bat and Junk Reanimator. Wolfrun Bat again. Yeah. And that Melissa DeTore did make the top 8 of Pro Tour Montreal with. Haven't seen it much since then. But Greenberg feels that it's pretty well positioned for day 2 of this tournament.
And I just want to break down one quick play at the end of the game. Harrison Greenberg is a very good Magic player. I've seen him throughout the years. And because of that Angel, he played that Angel unblocked just so he didn't have to invest all of his mana into the Wolfrun next turn, fearing a Restoration Angel. So because he just traded that off, he has nothing to fear if nothing gets blocked. Moving into the last game, now we saw that game midway through, where Wolfrun Bant has already Sphinx Revved and everything, and it looked like completely out of Junk Reanimator's hands. But the early game is where Junk is going to do really well, and because Ron has 4 Acidic Slimes, we could see him trying to take over the game very early. And Summerworld Sage is usually not a card I like in these control matchups, but it goes under everything that Bant can do. If you get an early early one, you can use your Acidic Slimes and Restoration Angels and even your Unburial Rites to keep Harrison from ever even achieving 4 lands in play. And that's something I've done, and I've done, and is the strategy when you're having 4 Acidic Slimes. And if Ron has 4 Slimes, he knows how to use them.
Yeah. And he does have 4 Slimes in his sideboard. Also 2 copies of Deathrite Shaman, 2 copies of Tristani, 3 copies of Abrupt Decay, the Black Primordial, an Angel of Serenity, an additional Somberwald Sage. You saw 2 underneath the Detention Sphere. He has one in his main, one of his sideboard. And a copy of Michaelis the Unhallowed, a card that we have not seen in a long time.
With one in the main, and I love this because A, you don't have that many humans.
Okay.
And I think that's what it says, right? All your non-humans have Undying.
I believe that's the case. If that's a card that we can bring up on the screen.
Yeah, I would like to see that.
This
one
is
more
the
time.
Black Michaelis. The white Michaelis, the Luminarch. I think we all know what that one does.
Yes.
Spreading out +1/+1
It's
counters.
the closest thing to a Kithkin lover possible.
Absolutely. The only thing wrong with it is it's creature type.
Which is human.
Yes, unfortunately.
But the dark side of Michaelis is very good against Supreme Verdict. It's like another threat test effect, especially with cards like Acidic Slime. So yeah, whenever human deals damage to you, destroy it. That's not the relevant ability right now. It's because other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. This not only makes your Acidic Slimes more of a clock, but if you have this in play with Thragtusk, Acidic Slimes, Restoration Angels, when your opponent casts Supreme Verdict, you get it all back. You know how good Thragtusk is against Supreme Verdict?
Yeah.
And that just lets your whole team do that. So that's a great innovation against control decks. I feel like his matchup here is very good right now with 2 copies of Restoration Angel, 4 Acidic Slimes, and 2 Michaelis. Along with the Thragtusk, I feel like we're going to see Ron have a very good early game against Harrison Greenberg. But you can't count Greenberg out because that guy knows how to play Magic.
Yeah. And we saw, over the course of this weekend, we've seen a lot of different builds of Junk Reanimator, a lot of different, we've seen Obsidians in the main deck. We've seen, people have spot removal spells in their deck. Some people are moving towards a Black Memorial for the mirror match. Some people are moving towards 4 Angel Serenities instead of 3, which is something I know that you agree with. Even some people stepping in the direction that you're familiar with, the Somberbolt Sages. You see Ron doing it here with one in his main and one of his sideboard. A lot of people are trying a lot of different cards now, trying to get a leg up in the mirror, and you do see a card like Michaelis the Unhallowed, which may not be great in the mirror per se, but it maybe solidifies your other matchups, your Supreme Verdict matchups, your Bonfire the Dam matchups, and just turns those into what are, somewhat favorable into a laugher.
Oh yeah, no, I think that is a wonderful inclusion. It's one of the first times in a long time that I've seen someone innovate for this deck that I'm just like, wow, I can't believe I didn't think about that, because these control matchups are a little tough. Now, one problem you have with Michaelis is how good is Undying against Rest in Peace?
Yep.
So if your opponent goes Rest in Peace Supreme Verdict, it's laughable. And you're trying to keep your opponents off of that, though. You're trying to restrict their mana with Acidic Slimes and Restoration Angel. So you're going to see Ron try to get out of the gates with that strategy. You can't let Wolf Run Band get to the long game because there's no other deck as good as Wolf Run Band in that long game because of the Wolf Runs.
Yep. Unlike your Prime Speaker Vamp deck, which we saw in our marathon match a little bit earlier, in the semifinals, against Junk Reanimator, where it was able to, start on mulligan to 5, come back from losing, resolve a Prime Speaker, draw all of these cards, do all these things, create a huge board presence, and then it only had 2 Gavany Townships to work with to make these guys bigger. We saw our eventual winner, Brandon Ross, was able to stabilize, do all this blocking. Vault of the Archangels was greater than, signed 2 copies of Gavany Township. Eventually, Vault took over, and then Brandon was able to win that match and the tournament. Imagine if one of those Gavany Townships was a Wolf Run, was a Kessig Wolf Run.
For sure. If it was, you would not see that Lotleth troll getting the Medal of Honor for him.
Yeah.
Just winning and dealing with the entire board presence. There was multiple Beast tokens, multiple Threat Tests, all 4 in fact. And this Lotleth troll and a couple other got it. It was the Alamo, man.
Yeah.
It really was. And if there's a Wolf Run, it would have just been a slaughter.
Yeah. We would have seen a very different game and potentially a very different match result. But we see the power of Kessig Wolf on a card that's a little bit underplayed right now. Not really much of a home for it. You see a couple copies of it in the Jund deck. That's about it. And, if you were to interview Melissa or talk to her about, one of the cards that was paramount in her topping the Pro Tour in Montreal, I think Kessig Wolf would be at the very top of her list.
Oh, for
the
sure.
card that closed out a lot of those games. Sphinx of Revelation is probably number 2 on the list. But Kessig Wolf Run, every time I was tuning in that Pro Tour coverage, I saw Wolf Run being activated for, double digits oftentimes.
We've seen Bant splash multiple things. Early on, we saw it doing Nithidali Drawing here, but it doesn't really go with the strategy of when you draw, like, the thing about Wolf Run Bants Sphinx's Revs is you draw a lot of creatures because your deck has a high density of those spells. So because of that, the Wolf runs work better. You're making all your land drops because of the Sphinx's Revelations. You're trying to. That's what your first job is, to make a lot of land drops to cast Sphinx's Rev. And now you don't really want to go Thrytos mill you for 3. Restoration Angel mill you for 3. Yeah. You just want to hit them hard, hit them fast with these Wolf runs. So I love the inclusion of that, and that is the best Bant land. So now we have Ron looking at his initial 7, Harrison just staring him down before he even takes a glance.
Doesn't want to give away any information in his opening hand. Just going to let Ron sit here and decide, are you happy with that opening 7? Do you have Mulch? Do you have Grizzly Salvage? Are you scared of the Rest in Peace that you know I have in my sideboard? 2 copies over there of that card.
Along with the 3 ground seals.
Yep.
And Ron is under pressure to do things proactively. Yep. Harrison is content with sitting back. If both players play land go, Harrison's very happy with that.
Absolutely.
So the pressure is on Ron to perform, and without a 1-drop, that's going to make things a little bit more difficult.
So you see both players start off with those dual lands. You can see a Woodland Cemetery over there for Ron, a Hinterland Harbor for Harrison.
Did he keep a 1-lander?
And it looks like he did keep 1-lander with double mulch.
I don't know how you can do that. Did Harrison keep a 1-lander? He
yes.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay, he gets a little happy there.
So Ron does draw a Sun Petal Grove. Harrison misses. He draws a Restoration Angel.
I've never
He's gonna
seen
discard
this in
that.
Standard.
And now, as Ron does draw a Thragtusk, Mulch is here to save the day, most likely. Restoration Angel, Mulch, Temple Garden, and Woodland Cemetery. And that, what you feel right there is that sinking feeling for Harrison. And he does find 2 lands, and he actually even has a card to discard in Lingering Souls as well, to hand size.
Again, this is the last call to sign up for 2-headed giant.
The one thing that Ron needs to make sure he does is he hasn't played land yet this time.
No, he hasn't.
And he's
like, wait. He's not going to. He's going to forget.
Yeah, because that's...
Or does he want to discard those?
Maybe he just wants to discard those. That's possible, but I think, he does certainly want to hit his land.
I think he's just excited and forgot.
And Harrison discards another Azorius Charm. You see the Ground Seal and the Farseek and the Rest in Peace in his hand, so it looks like the 1-lander that he kept may have been, a pretty good hand.
This could be brutal because there is a Rest in Peace in his hand, and if Ron, because of that missed land drop, he gets an additional turn to try to get there.
Did you see Mulch turn over 3 lands, a Forest, a Sun Petal Grove, and a Woodland Cemetery? Angel Serenity does go to the graveyard, so it looks like Ron's going to have to do a little bit more discarding here, but he does have lands now.
If you were in this position right now, would you actually have cast Mulch there? I think I would have waited until I played a couple spells to hit the late ones. You're going to have to discard, and I don't want to ever draw 2 lands.
Yeah, in that situation, maybe I just want to cast my Lingering Souls, start to get a little bit of pressure on the board. As you see Hinterland Harbor here for Harrison, and he does just pass the turn back. You're going to have to discard cards if Mulch goes your way anyway, so you probably don't want to do that. But Ron decided he did want to cast Mulch, did discard a few lands. Lands are no longer going to be an issue, and now he's got a couple Spirit Tokens in the form of Lingering Souls.
Yeah, instead of electing to cast the one from hand instead of the one in the graveyard.
And we'll get some real Spirit Tokens out there for you guys so you can see them at home. As Harrison's going to untap, he's going to draw. He's looking for a white source of mana. You see a Farseek in his hand. And again, we know he does have a lot of graveyard hate in his hand, but he's been behind as he does draw a card, and he draws a Kessig Wolf Run.
At least he gets to make the land drops. That's very important. This is going to allow him to get a white source, but Ron should be able to Acidic Slime that almost immediately.
Yeah, assuming he does have an Acidic Slime in his hand, we're going to see this white source probably get blown up as Ron is going to draw a card. You do see the Acidic Slime in his hand. You do see Unburial Rights to draw for the turn, and you are going to see attack here with some Spirit Tokens. But let's see if he does elect to Acidic Slime white source, or maybe cast a Thragtusk instead.
If you have slime, you play it.
I know that's your #1 rule. Let's see if they've been reading your book. He's read the Acidic Slime book by Brad Nelson. He's going to take care of that white source of mana. Hollow Fountain, it is time to leave. Here come your Spirit Tokens, and Ron is certainly turning the corner now after what were some interesting cues by both players, as Harrison does draw what looks to be a Sun Petal Grove.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of white sources left in Harrison's deck, but a lot of them do not come to play untapped right now. That is a Steam Vents, but that does not bring a Temple Garden, Sun Petal Grove into play untapped, so he's going to have to play that first.
So Sun Petal Grove does come into play tapped. Harrison does have a Ground Seal here, but he's already a little bit behind on the board, and if we know anything about Junk Reanimator, Ground Seal, as good as a card as it is against this deck, Brad, they can just play a normal game of Magic.
Yep, and here we go for Acidic Slime #2, keeping them off white sources. Supreme Verdict's not going to be able to happen at all in this game, so Harrison is just too far behind. Draws a Farseek. Going to keep trying to develop his mana, but he's going to drop to 8 this turn.
So Farseek is going to allow Harrison to search out what is likely going to be another Hallowed Fountain, or at least another source of white mana.
Was there a Restoration Angel milled over? I can't remember.
I'm not quite entirely sure either. We don't have a good look at Ron's graveyard. Either way, because of the ground seal in play, won't be able to unburial rights anything.
Oh, excuse me, yeah. I forgot about the ground seal in play.
And so we see an attack here for 6 by Ron. He's going to be able to put Harrison down to 8. You see a Thraktos, you see a Summerwald Sage, you see that unburial rights that is rather useless, and of course that Angel of Serenity, so in case Harrison does anything threatening.
Yeah, do we Lingering Souls or just let him untap?
Looks like he's just going to let him untap. I mean, he does have lethal on the board right now.
Yeah.
As you see Detention Spheres to draw here from Harrison. And he has a Thraktusk of his own, so he's going to push himself up to 13.
What a game.
He does just pass the turn back. Of course, you do see a couple copies of... You see a Detention Sphere, you see a Rest in Peace, you see a Azorius Charm in his hand. Just has never had white mana to get those spells off the ground.
Oh, yeah, I feel like he just drew an acidic slime. I still believe that I would just take that white source. Keep him off the color. Even if ground soul's in play, stopping his unburial rights in his hand. Keep him off white, don't let him Supreme Verdict, and then because he only is down to 0 white sources, then you can flash back that Lingering Souls and just shut the door on Harrison.
You know, ground seal right now is an annoyance for Ron, but it doesn't seem like, you know, it's that big of a problem. It's simply an annoyance. I think acidic slime, you know, it's much bigger role here is taking care of that white mana.
Especially since there's not a single creature on the ground that Harrison could block that would not kill the Thraktos anyway. Next turn, the Angel Serenity in his hand would be able to remove that beast token and make sure this game is over.
So we'll see what Ron is going to elect to do here as he is playing that acidic slime. And let's see what he's going to target. Is it white source or is it ground seal?
Yeah, he just announced Hallowed Fountain.
And Hallowed Fountain is in the graveyard, so that's what that acidic slime destroyed. You see Thraktos is going to have to get in the way of something here. A little surprise there, though, that he doesn't attack with the other with his own Thraktos.
I think he just wants some threat after Wrath, but it's not going to happen. He has him on a 2-turn clock. Does he flash back? I think he's reading Ground Seal to make sure if he can flash back a Lingering Souls.
And that's exactly what he did, and so that's exactly what he's going to do. He's got the green light there. Ground Seal is not going to stop the flashback. 2 more Spirit Tokens are going to come into play, and Ron is going to pass the turn back, and it looks like next turn we are threatening close to lethal. He's only at 9 right now. If that Thraktos had come across, we have different combat math, but the way that the numbers line up, it will not be a lethal attack next turn.
All right. Sphinx's Revelation from his hand is not going to help, and Harrison extends the hand. And just like we wrote it up, Junk Reanimator used Acidic Slime to his advantage. We did not think both players would just get stuck on one forever.
I was not expecting that. I like it though. Risk it keeps early in the morning.
Get stuck on lands, hit my land, skip my land.
However, one of these decks does have mulch, and one of them doesn't. And we saw as soon as Ron was able to draw a second land, put that Sunpetal Grove into play, mulch the next turn, able to find his land, draw out of it, and discard some cards, which is what he wants to do anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's not so bad either. So